Hey there, I'm Mark from Spectrum Pulse, and today we have from Armand Hammer and Alchemist Mercy. It's very intriguing going back to my old review of 2021's Haram and On the Pulse after giving Mercy a lot of listens, and realizing how some things just don't change as much as you might expect, because I really appreciated the bars and thematic arc of Haram from Billy Woods and ELUCID, walking the narrow tightrope between a more popular acceptance of their message and what that would actually entail, personally and both within/against systems that could profit off of their commercialization or exploitation, but I was just nowhere near as high on Alchemist's softer production palette as a fit for those bars, even if I knew it would be effective in moving the duo closer towards popular hip-hop acceptance. Now, since then, my opinion has really oscillated on Haram. It's an easier listen to be sure, still one of the best albums of 2021, they're that good, but rarely taking advantage of that polish the way it could, and certainly not among my favorites of their catalog compared to We Buy Diabetic Test Strips or Rome. And what do you know, Mercy falls near the exact same territory. On the one hand, it feels like one step forward in terms of a more gently soulful palette and melodic guest hooks from Cleo Reed and Kapwani. Still too dense for crossover, yet with tones that could go down easy, but with Alchemist not remotely delivering his best. Now, some of this feels long in coming. Alfredo 2 also showed Alchemist coasting a lot more than he should, but I'd argue my cooling on him goes back years now, not even touching on that AI-related foolishness with Erykah Badu, and between how buttery and mellow the production usually is, barely matching the textured details of the bars as it gently twinkles around the muted patter of the cleaner drums, and then the ugly tinny bleeping tone blaring through Peshawar, the chalky chipmunk sample on Moonbow where Woods' verse and the stacked Michelin references were just enough to save that, then the closer Super Nintendo with the sample coming from Ocarina of Time, which wasn't even on the Super Nintendo. Look, it's just nowhere near as compelling or dark as some of the more experimental grooves both rappers have utilized in years past, either solo or as Armand Hammer. It just doesn't fit as well. Even if I do think the spiraling discordance of Laraaji, the bubbling keys of Scandinavia, or the haunted minimalism of Crisis Phone ultimately work, it is still Alchemist. He can still occasionally deliver. Of course, I'm sure Armand Hammer know all of this, and when you start looking between the lines, where Haram was taking stock of where they were moving up in the world, Mercy is the plain-spoken acknowledgement that much more of the world is more ready to engage with their hard-bitten, half-dystopian view of where everything is now, ripping the blinders away, often catching up to where folks of color and the non-Western world were and knew already. Now, if you know Armand Hammer's output the past decade or so, you've been on the sidelines watching them experience apocalypse before. They bring this trudging familiarity to the proceeding, not only through direct references to past albums, but also the implication of how bad systems can collapse, but they can be rebooted just as quickly, as Woods himself says on Peshawar. So, a somewhat softer palette feels more like the quiet welcome to the horrors of the world, instructions on how one can keep on going, especially when what is perceived as normal can so quickly be recontextualized to be deadly, crossing the Rubicon, a sacred river to be considered then as an armed border, basketball games that might have been for fun at one point but are now deadly serious. And make no mistake, you're going to pay all of it to hear it properly, even if some of their white audience hasn't caught up to all the cultural references or jokes made at their expense on glue traps. But there is an empathy and questions that linger that reveals no matter how long Armand Hammer have lived in this space, their experience from everyone else is not that far removed. Even if it wasn't always the best of times, they played a lot of the same games you did. The relationship strife and miscommunications that lingers between the lines is familiar. The horrific nightmares of genocide they've witnessed, like on You Know My Body, and then the scavenging they've had to do to survive, it's like stealing the shoes on No Grappa, is truly haunting. But then there's the lingering question of what their role is as artists and poets. It's made directly on Dogeared, coming from a woman. The sharp echo of Haram's own meta-commentary, where they don't really have as clear of an answer as they would like beyond their own survival. If you think that's a cop-out, well, the revolution's not going to be televised, live streamed, or published on streaming services. And if Mercy offers anything, it's some of that fragile solidarity to exist in that bleak uncertainty. And in short, Okay, putting aside the increasingly inessential production from Alchemist, I have covered so much from Backwoods Studios at this point that the scale of quality and expectations have only gotten higher, and where Mercy just can't live up to either Haram or Shrines, and certainly not Woods' solo album this year, it's bound to feel a bit disappointing. That's not saying it's bad, Woods and ELUCID are too good behind the microphone for that assessment, but it's got the odd feeling of after watching an expert do something for a long time, it inspires you to take up that same craft and get to some comparable level of expertise where you know what they're doing and how they do it, and you look to those experts for the next step to keep on growing, and you get the weird sinking feeling that they themselves might not have figured out the answer, where the album art has them in a courtroom sitting at the defendant's table as if they preemptively knew some of those questions were coming. And fair enough. If the message is that the answers have to be found off record, with this being the plea to go out and find some of that path for yourself, organize with the right people, I respect that. It's the correct answer. But it doesn't exactly make for a satisfying album beyond the metatext. So yeah, I'll grant you Mercy's pretty good. At least for now. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you want to see more, please be sure to like, share, drop comments, subscribe. Yeah, I get this might be coming across a little bit harsh. I really wanted to like this, but again, when you have to consider what Woods has put out the past 5 or so years, actually, I'll go back as far as Rome, and especially when you consider what Armand Hammer has done within hip-hop, this is just not measuring up. I'm sorry, it's not a hiding place, it's not a maps, it's not even a church or Ethiops in my view, and when I have those albums to compare this to, it just doesn't really fly. But hey, leave your comments down there below. Anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, I'm all ears. And if you all want to get involved and help and support the channel, get albums on my schedule, argue with me on my Discord, link to my YouTube memberships and Patreon is right over there. Don't feel obligated, tough times out there. Again, likely a recession coming, y'all know. But hey, otherwise, options available. Till then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.